goodness. I'm sorry about the video. I don't... Hold on. This is so tacky. I left my magnet at work Tuesday when I had to rush home because of the evacuation for the fire. And I need the magnet for my other mount, so I don't have it this morning. And it's my first day back to work since Tuesday, so I wasn't sure what I wanted to talk about, but after having this experience with this fire, and the experience is still happening because there's a possibility that the fire can shift back this way, I experienced some things emotionally that I thought were quite interesting. Firstly, my first reaction was make sure I have everything in order to move forward. Like if I have to evacuate my home and let's say it's lost in the fire, to have the things that I will need in order to continue. It's basically clothes and documents and stuff like that. But as people were calling me and texting me and we were having conversations about, they were like asking, well, did you, are you packing, the things that you need? And they were really focused on the things that were in the house, like just things. One of my friends, she used the word keepsakes, and I'm like, I've never been that type of person. Like, she's like, do you have, your photos and things like that? And I'm like, well, whatever's not in the cloud, I guess not, that's it, But pictures, I've never been a picture person. And my sister, on the other hand, she snaps every single thing. Snap, 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 snap. She just takes pictures of everything. She's like, oh, a butterfly, snap, but I've never been that person. Like, I could care less about pictures and things like that. But it was interesting because as I was having this conversation with people, my thoughts and my feelings towards things started to shift. Like, they were moving more into an alignment with how they were thinking and feeling in terms of what is important. And it was all of these physical things. And like, they were talking about, how, it's so sad to lose everything. Your whole life is in your house. And I'm thinking, really? And at first I said to myself, your whole life is you. Like, your life isn't a vase or a couch or anything like that. Your life is literally you. So as long as you get out, that's what you have. I mean, I don't get it, but I started to shift a little bit into holding on to mentally and emotionally holding on to the things that were in my home. Like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna not so much, but I felt it slightly shifting. Like my mind was open to the idea that those things are really important, I should say. And I was like, the feeling that I got was like a feeling of loss. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And so I had to like check myself. I'm like, this stuff is not important. It wasn't important before I started having the conversation, so it shouldn't be important now, And so it was just interesting to go through that little moment of fluctuation in terms of emotions. But it just really goes to show that people are really stuck on these physical things that we enjoy. Like, for me, I see it as I have fire insurance. The insurance will pay for it, and for the most part, it's going to pay for the things that are in the home too. So nothing's really lost. I mean, I would basically have the same types of furnishings, if you will, maybe a little different, but I would still have a home. I would, have a roof over my head at some point. I still have furniture and dishes and all that stuff that people thought were so important. But it was, it's just, I don't know, it put some things into perspective, I know that. And it made me enjoy, or I should say, it allowed me to appreciate the things that I do have. Because as people were sending messages, asking, are you okay? Where are you? I was like, I'm in bed. I didn't go to work today. And I'm enjoying, my bed because who knows how long I'm going to have it, So I was just enjoying the now moment because that's all we really have is a now moment. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. The past is already done. So the past tells me that I'm still in the house, So it's okay. To me, it's all good. But, being, the thought of being homeless and not, or being displaced, I don't know, that stuff really doesn't bother me. Like, nobody wants to experience that. I don't want to experience it, but I've been there before, like, as a kid. Like, me and my mom, we've had it so hard, we lived in shelters, as I've said in previous videos. So it's not like anything I'm fearing, because I've already had the experience, So, I don't know, I just find that I appreciate the things that I have more so now than I did before this fire broke. Because the fires are all over the place. Oh my gosh. Also, some other things that I experienced were like the beliefs that people have. So for the most part, those of you who have been listening to my videos, you guys know that I was raised in a Jehovah's Witness family. There are these Awakes and Watchtower magazines that they have, and they have these illustrations of death and destruction all over the place. And so I was posting them online, and it was about Armageddon come, and Jesus or God is going to come and destroy the wicked if they don't change. But these illustrations were like a fire, and I was posting them online being silly, but I can see how someone can take those illustrations and then take experiences or events such as the ones that we've been having here in California and apply them to their belief system and say, see, it's happening, and it reinforces the belief system. Now, mind you, this is only happening in California. I mean, there are other states, right? I mean, and it's not happening in the other states. It's happening in California. But the illustrations are basically for the world. Like, that's what's going to happen to the world, when Armageddon comes. But how people will use this to justify a belief that they have, it's interesting because we do this all the time. It doesn't matter what it is. Even non-Jehovah's Witness Christian faiths where they believe that if you do wrong, then God's going to punish you. And so every event that happens that's bad, they'll say that it's God punishing you for the things that you've done. And then I saw some posts about Mother Nature. It was about Mother Nature's angry at what we've been doing to the planet, and this is our punishment. And it was interesting because it was like people give personality, they give life, because that's what it is. They give life to these events. And it doesn't have anything to do with that. Like, it's literally you, the soul, that is attracting these events through the law of attraction. It's not like Mother Nature is saying, hey, you've been destroying my body, or whatever you want to call it. You've been destroying who I am, and now I'm going to get you back by blazing flames all over the place, or earthquakes and whatever, tornadoes, or whatever it is that comes about. As if, I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's just they have to give personality to something. And even like animals, like not real animals, well, they do that with animals too, but they do it with toys, like action figures. They give personality to it. And this is how things come alive. This is how you're able to create a whole bunch of nothing out of something. It's you creating it. Like, literally, you're giving life to this stuff. You're giving personality. You're giving character to these things that actually have none at all. There is no life in it. They're just mechanisms that God has created that's responding to the soul. But that, in order for someone to see that means they would have to take some type of responsibility. There has to be self-responsibility. There has to be accountability for what's within our soul. And people don't want to do that. They want to stick to these external characteristics put upon action figures and a Satan that doesn't exist, and Mother Earth as, this angry parent, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's all nonsense, but we don't see it. Most people don't see it as nonsense. They see it as real. And of course it's real for them because they created it. It's that simple. It's going to feel real because you're able to make it feel or seem that way. You have that power. We all have that power to create and make things seem so real to give ourselves an experience. Literally, we can close our eyes and think of ourselves being in a paradise environment and have a feeling from that. We created that feeling. And it's just an imagination. That's it. That's all we're doing. We're just applying it, just creating it out of thin air. Literally creating this stuff out of thin air. And this is important to recognize because we do this every day. Oh my gosh, what if this happens? What if that happens? And what if this happens? And we just create worry and chaos when there's nothing there. There's just calm. There's this calm, and then all of a sudden we're like, we want to stir up this and stir up that. Most things in the world aren't as bad as most people depict it to be. And I was really realizing that with the fire. So here we have 5 fires in California spread out throughout the state. And it's like the way the news reporters were reporting, it was just like they try to make it bigger than what it was. And of course it's huge. People are losing their homes. I understand that, and they're displaced. I get that. But the way they make it seem, it's crazy. First we started out with the Ventura fire, which is the biggest fire that's happening. And then there was another one by my house, which is a creek fire. And then there was a Santa Clarita, and then the San Bernardino one came up, and I was like, all these, and then, the Bel Air with the Skirball fire. But, they were covering the other fires, sort of equally. They focused more on the, which one? The Ventura fire. That was the biggest one. That was the first one that broke out, the Thomas fire. And it was just, coverage, and then they would go to Creek Fire, which is the one by me, and then that's how I was, being aware as to what was going on, because of the evacuations. Like, that's how I found out my information. And they were covering them pretty much equally for the most part. And then, all of a sudden, the Bel Air fire broke out, the Skirball fire. And after that, the other fires didn't even exist. I was like, well, what's going on? Like, literally, they were, like, not covering it anymore. And I'm like, there's still homes, people's lives are still being affected. Why are you, reporting the news? So what they were focusing on is, it's going to get, they're trying to prevent it from getting to the Getty Museum. And, these multi-million-dollar homes are going up in flames. But there were other homes, in the other fires that were going up in flames as well. But they didn't want to cover those anymore. They went directly to the multi-million-dollar homes. And they put that one, they kind of try to contain that one, it seems like, much faster. And I understand that it's a heavily populated area. But they did not cover the other ones, but the way they were making it seem was so dramatic. Like, this home is so sad. Look at them. They're trying, with their water hose. But other people were doing that in the other fires. But it was the way that they were reporting it, as if it had more importance because the homes were bigger. And I actually heard the news reporter say nicer homes. These are nicer homes. And I was like, wait a minute. Does it matter whether it's a more expensive home? I mean, they're homes and people live in them and people are all the same. So what makes, what gives this more importance? Oh, here we go with the traffic again. Shoot. I don't know if it's going to pop up. It's 6:33. I'll go straight. Okay. I don't know. It was just interesting. I don't know if I should call it bias. Of course it's a bias, but you just see, the importance that people put on certain things and what they dismiss or disregard. And it's just interesting to see it played out. And they don't even know it's happening. That's the thing. They don't even know that there's a bias. They don't even know that the homes that a lot of them are talking about or dismissing are the same kind of homes that they live in. That's the interesting thing. It's like, do you not see this? That what you have, you don't even consider as important as someone who has something that's more or bigger. that's some interesting things I've been noticing since this fire. But yeah, fear really didn't set in too much, even though that I was close to the evacuation zone. So there was a mandatory evacuation near my house, just on the other side of the freeway. So I live maybe about 3 blocks away from the freeway. So my area was definitely going to be next in terms of mandatory evacuation, which is why I stayed home from work, because I work so far away from my home. It would take me way too long to get home, and of course you guys know that I have a dog, my beautiful husky Bella. It would just take me too long to get to her and get out, because generally when you have mandatory evacuation, you have 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes at the most, and it would have taken me over an hour to get to my house. Granted, and mind you, all the freeways were well, not all the freeways, but the 210 was closed, the 405 was closed, part of the 5 was closed, and so there was a lot of traffic on the streets, and so I just didn't want to take that chance. But today it looks clearer. So I don't know if they're containing the fire. Again, this morning they were still stuck on that Skirball fire, and they were not talking about the fire near me. So I have no idea what's going on with the fire near me. But it's clear there isn't as much smoke. So the wind is obviously blowing it somewhere else. So obviously the firefighters are still fighting it, but they're just fighting it in a different direction. However, all that's supposed to change. I think we're supposed to get like 80-mile-an-hour winds, so that's gonna that could change things dramatically. So I don't know. But yeah, anyway, I'm much more. Or man, I don't know who you are. I'm much more grateful for the things that I have. But I am quite proud of myself that I did not get worried like most people do. Like I didn't allow myself to go there, and there wasn't anything in me that really wanted to go there. So it wasn't like I was preventing a fear or anything from happening, because as you've heard me say in the past, there's a difference between the mind and the soul, and when the mind has the ability to trick you and ignore what you're really feeling on a soul level. But I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that I was trying to force myself to feel a certain way or to feel like everything's going to be okay. I did feel that everything's going to work out. Like it didn't matter whether I accepted the fact that my house could burn down. That I accepted. I was like, you know what? I accepted that it's a possibility. I was not saying, oh, please God, no. Like, I accepted it. Like, I was like, that's a possibility. And if it happens, it happens. I'm going to move on. And now my desire is that it doesn't happen. But if it does happen, I'm okay with that. You have to be humble enough to accept it. And as you surrender to it, what happens is it doesn't affect you. If you've been watching the news, then you will see that a lot of homes, or in a lot of neighborhoods, there were homes that were untouched. Like literally, there could be 5 or 6 homes in a row burned down to the ground, skipped one, and then the next 5 or 6 burned down to the ground. And you have to ask yourself, well, how is that possible? It's because it's not part of their law of attraction. Out of all that devastation, all that tragedy happening, all that destruction going on, the law of attraction could not bring that to them, those people who still have their homes. It couldn't, because it doesn't reside within their soul. So I know you guys hear me say, law of attraction, but it's true. It is true. And that's evidence of it, because you can't really explain how a fire is going to burn everything down except for one home. And then there was this one guy that was amazing. Like, I was like, I already know what's happening there. So the guy, this older guy, had a house in the hills, in the mountains, and there was a mandatory evacuation the night prior, and so he and his family left, and just basically had it within him. And I remember the interview, he said, I just accepted that, it was all going to be gone. And so he didn't have any resistance to it. It was just an acceptance, meaning he surrendered to that possibility that that's going to happen. And that was it. No resistance whatsoever. And so, come to find out, his neighbors, who I guess did not listen in terms of the mandatory evacuation, they were still around. And so the flames were getting close to his house, the guy who did evacuate, and they got their water hose and they were watering his house down. The only house that was left standing was his. And it was some type of historical landmark or something like that house. And he came back and he was in shock. But the thing is, all the neighbors who lost their homes were fighting the fire to keep it standing, to make sure that it was safe. The thing is, that was this man's law of attraction. That was his law of attraction. And the universe worked in a way where it worked through people in order to bring him his law of attraction. That's it. It was amazing to hear his story because he was, after, it was all said and done and the news reporter was interviewing him, he felt he had a, what is that called? I think I don't know if it's called guilt factor or whatever, but he felt, something, survivor's remorse, I think it's called. He was feeling bad because he was the only one who had a home, and all of those who helped save his house lost theirs. But this was his law of attraction. But the fact that he even felt that for those other people really goes to show the reason why his law of attraction is the way it is. He was really concerned about the other people. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm so glad, I'm happy my house is standing, it's unfortunate for the other people. Like, this man really had care and concern for those who helped him preserve his home. And that just goes to show how much of a heart he has and what dwells within his soul. And so it's interesting. It was just interesting to watch, the dynamics of it. And then there was another guy. He was like, he had a huge home. He was a doctor. And literally his house burned down to the ground. Like, there was nothing left. Like, nothing. There was no structure left. It was just all on the ground. And his was the only house that burned up. And there were two of them, two other large multi-million-dollar homes, and this was like on a bluff, next to his house, and they didn't catch fire. But his caught fire and burned to the ground. And I was listening to him as they were interviewing, and he was so closed off and cold. And I was like, okay. So he was like, well, I have insurance. That was it. I have insurance. It's fine. We lost the pictures. We lost this, whatever. And there was just no connection. And meanwhile, the wife was bawling. She was, of course, if you don't have to work and you're able to stay in your home, you have more of a connection to it. Whereas if you're always away from home and you're working, there's less of a connection to it. So anyway, I was just looking at him and how he was unfazed by the entire thing. And I was like, why is this his law of attraction? And I was like, this man is cutting himself off emotionally from everything. And this is before I found out that he was a doctor. Now, if you're a doctor, there's a part of you that has to be closed off. You have to cut off your emotions because you can't be involved with your patients like that. And you have to understand that you have to maintain a certain level of professionalism, and professionalism means emotionless. That's what professionalism is. If you ever pay attention to how you act around people or what you consider professional, it means zero emotions. Zero emotions, which is why a lot of people get screwed in the business world, because everything has to be professional. You can't let your feelings get in the way. but it's your feelings are who you are. It's part of your character. And so when you don't allow yourself to express yourself, then you're in trouble. But anyway, it was just really interesting watching everything unfold, but more so watching the people and how they were responding to it. That was really interesting, because that's basically what I was focusing on. I was like, okay, how are you responding? There was this one lady, I loved her. She was so great. She lived in a trailer, and she said she was, they were worried and everything, and she said, she goes, yeah, I'm really worried, and she was like choking up a little bit, trying to hold back from crying, and she said, I'm really grateful for what I have, she said, and you will never ever hear me complain about living in a trailer, because if I lose this, I'll be living in my car. She goes, so I'm just so grateful right now. But what she said was amazing. For me, it was amazing, because it was like, look, you need to fix everything about your car right there. She was just so grateful. She understood at that moment, and I understand what she was going through, because I felt it too. It's like, you won't ever hear me not that I did complain, but there was more of an appreciation for the things that I have, because at any given moment, it can all be taken away. Just like that. So that's why I was like, still in bed. I wasn't like rushing to like get up and get ready or anything. I was just enjoying the moment, because you just never know. At least I know if I lost my house, I can remember the morning that I slept in, and I enjoyed the bed and how comfortable it was, and how safe I felt within my home, the comforts of my home. I can remember that feeling, and I right now I can recall it. And so that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to really savor the moment, because I didn't know. But then that triggered something else in me, which was, why don't I feel this way on a regular basis about things in my now moment? Because, for the most part, I just work, and I go through life, doing one thing to the next thing, to the one thing, to this thing, and I really don't focus so much on the now moment. But that's something that I learned in this experience, to really savor the now moment, because you never know. You just never know. And not because there's a possibility of losing anything, but just to be appreciative of what you have. That's it. It's not about, this whole fear thing where I want to get over. I want to get over. I do want to get over. Are you going to let me over? Oh, bless your heart. To be grateful, and enjoy life to the fullest, which is something I wasn't really doing. I didn't notice it until this experience. So in a way, I'm kind of glad this experience happened. For me, I can't apply it to everyone else, because I'm sure people are devastated that this even happened. But with every situation that we would call negative or sad or painful, there's a lesson to be learned. There's something to extrapolate out of that, and that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do, is look at a situation, every experience, and try to learn from it, get something positive out of it, not to just look at it and say, not just to say, try to look at the positive in every negative thing. That's not what I'm saying, because some people do that and they ignore what's happened. They ignore the negative situation altogether. But to pull something out of it, someone had I was looking for my birth certificate and I couldn't find it, and someone said, oh, something smells weird out here. It's weird. I couldn't find my birth certificate, and I really needed to find it, and so I found it, and I posted. I don't know if it's a good sign or a bad sign, because if I found it, and I'm going to need it because I'm going to lose my home, then that would maybe be a bad sign. But someone wrote, oh, it's just a sign that you get to start all over. It's a sign that everything's going to be okay and you're going to start all over. And I'm thinking, how'd you get that? I'm like, wait a minute. Well, I mean, my house isn't gone, so what she was basically saying is that to accept that your house is going to be gone and this is what you're going to need, the universe is providing this in order for you to transition to your new life more easly. I'm like, I can't accept that just yet. You know, I'm like, I'm okay if it happens, but to hold on to that as fact or truth, that's a little different, you know? It's just, I haven't accepted that in that way as if that's what my life is going to be, because that's like accepting defeat, and that's not what my surrendering was. I wasn't accepting defeat. I was just accepting the fact that it's a possibility, and if it's a possibility, I will move on. But my true desire is that it wouldn't happen. So I wasn't living in fear, you know, and or sadness, because you can lose a house from a fire and have two different things going, or three different things going on. But the two that I'm focusing on right now are the ones where you are fearful that it's going to happen, and you're just living in fear and it hasn't happened yet. And the other one is accepting that it will happen and feeling sad from that, even though it hasn't even taken place. So it's almost like you're living the result of something that hasn't taken place. And this is that conjuring up nonsense that I was talking about in the beginning of the video, how this is oftentimes what people do, is make stuff up and live in it. And that's how most people live. They're like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? But they're living in fear rather than it just being a mental possibility, and then surrendering to it, and, you know, and saying, well, if this happens, that's fine, I'll just do this. But not living in fear, because when you live in fear, that means you have accepted it and you're living the result of that experience as if it happened already. And that's a no-no. Like, you shouldn't be doing that at all. Where's my wallet? No, I left it. Oh no, do I have it? Oh yeah, I have it. Anyway, this video really didn't have a topic, but I just thought I would share some things that I noticed during the fire. Let me see. Let's do this, Bradley. There we go. So yeah, I'll try to find a topic tomorrow that's more focused and specific. Oh my gosh, I'm tired. Hopefully we don't have to evacuate. I mean, that'd be ideal, obviously. But yeah, for those there's some people I didn't even know lived here in LA. We're friends on Facebook. And it was interesting to see their reaction to what was going on. And some of them are, I don't know how I would classify them, but they're super positive people, like everything is, you know, find the good, find the good, find the good. And that was happening, where, you know, they were just being positive, and the fire was near their home, and I'm like, okay, do you not feel anything? Because I felt something. Like, I think it would have been sad, but like I said, you surrender to it, and you're just like, okay, you know, what's really important is me. And I know part of what I'm saying seems like a contradiction when I was talking about that doctor and how I was viewing it. The thing is, it's not what you're projecting externally, it's what you're feeling internally. So if you're not processing the emotions and acknowledging that they're there, then it's not a good thing. It means you're living in denial. So I don't know, you know, just you have to know what's, you know, within you, and be mindful of what's going on with inside of you, because if you don't, you'll get lost and you won't know what's going on. If you're being affected by something, if something's coming from within you, if something's coming from, you know, the outside. But anyway, these things are important to know. Get to know your soul. Get to know how you feel about things, where they're coming from. And if you don't know how to do that, do some research so you can learn about these things. Because, I mean, I learned because someone was teaching it. So it's not like this stuff is completely, you know, out of your reach to understand. I mean, the soul is a very complex thing to understand, but that doesn't mean just because it's complex that you can't grasp the idea of what it is and how it operates. You can understand anything if you put yourself into it in terms of trying to learn about it. So it doesn't matter if you know or don't know now. The whole point is to know, to find out. You know? Oh my goodness. Well, like I said, have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye now.